A special show for you today. We'll be joined by award-winning filmmaker, conservative thought leader, MAGA warrior, Dinesh D'Souza. You, of course, know him from his major hit films like Death of a Nation, 2016, Obama's America, The Trump Card, and 2,000 Mules, which are all among the highest-grossing political documentaries of all time. And now, he's releasing a new incredible film called Police State that takes you inside the world of government abuse of power, how the tools of intelligence were turned on we, the American people, and the left's larger agenda to destroy the American way of life and to undermine the values that make this nation great. Here's a clip from the trailer. Watch.
Chief Division Counsel and DOJ have approved a no-knock breach. We want the subject to be on display, doing the walk of shame, full visual impact. Any questions?
Are we becoming a police state?
Government told American citizens they couldn't go to church on Sunday.
For the first time in my life, I'm saying to myself, am I going to get a knock at the door?
FBI warrant, come to the door now!
The Patriot Act and FISA were used against Donald Trump.
These individuals have commissioned the biggest propaganda play in U.S. history.
They don't go after the people that rigged the election. They go after the people that want to find out what the hell happened.
We don't need to have a crime. What we need is a person to look at. And then we go find out what crime you did.
FBI! Our focus is shifting. Our main priority as a bureau is going to be domestic terrorism.
It really paints anybody who's right of center.
If you're a pro-life, pro-family Catholic, they define you as radical.
These are anti-government,
We have freedom of religion and freedom of speech.
violent extremists, and they must be dealt with. We can do anything we want.
This movie will be a must-see and lays out just what's at stake in 2024. So make sure you like and subscribe so you never miss this major episodes. And it's all of you who made this show possible, so I'll keep an eye on the live chat and respond to your comments later in the show. But before we get to Dinesh, a quick word from one of our incredible sponsors. Be sure to go check out the great folks over at Goldco. Gold and silver can protect your retirement savings from inflation and dollar devaluation. I mean, look, we all see the economic warning signs. We see banks collapsing. We see reckless spending. And I want you to be ready because I'm ready. Because with gold, you can take action to secure and stabilize your portfolio. Roll over your 401k or IRA into precious metals and safeguard your savings tax and penalty free. From precious metals, IRAs to direct purchases of gold and silver, Goldco has helped thousands of Americans place over $2 billion in gold and silver. And when you open up a qualifying gold IRA today, you can get up to $10,000 in free silver. So go to kimsmetals.com to learn more. That's kimsmetals.com and go get that 10K in free silver. And joining me now, author, filmmaker, America First rock star, there's no other way to put it, and producer of the new movie, Police State. Welcome, Dinesh D'Souza, to the program.
Thanks very much. Great to be on.
All right. So we do really appreciate you being here. You have been such a leading voice in exposing major corruption inside of our government. You've said before that this movie, Police State, is a movie that you never actually wanted to make because you never wanted to see our country get to this point, to see it this bad. Lay out for our viewers and listeners why you ultimately decided to make this film and what you want the audience to understand and take away from it.
Well, I came to the United States in 1978 as an exchange student. I was 17 years old. And as I studied here, I went to college at Dartmouth, I came to an understanding of American politics. You've got these two parties, and they argue about taxes, and they argue about foreign policy. But on the other hand, there are certain basic rights in our Constitution that are not supposed to be up for political debate. So, for example, it's not as if 51% of Americans can get together and go, hey, listen, we're going to prevent Dinesh from saying this. No, Dinesh has a right to free speech, regardless of what everyone else thinks. Similarly, the right to conscience, the right to freely assemble, to petition the government for grievances, equal rights under the law. These are basic rights that America is unique in acknowledging and guaranteeing. And so I began to see in recent years, one by one, these rights being attacked, being undermined. And I thought, wow, we're actually ceasing to be the free world. For decades, I think we're the free world, and North Korea or China or the old Soviet Union is the unfree world. But I saw those distinctions that were becoming erased. We see it obviously with Trump, we see it with the January 6th protesters, but we see it with so many other people that I realize that if this continues, we're going to be a police state like some of the places that people fled to come to America. And now we're heading in that direction.
Okay, so let's talk about, what the inflection point was for you, where you really saw the country, going down a path even more dangerous than we ever could have imagined, and that you've even documented before. What are some of the specific moments that stand out to you that when we look back and we see this interview years to come, we'll say, okay, Dinesh was able to pinpoint this and say these are certain moments magnified in American political history that really told the tale and foretold what was to come?
Well, I think looking back, a key moment would be the aftermath of 9/11. And this seems really odd to say because there were so many conservatives, me included, that thought, wow, we've got this unprecedented attack on American soil. In this respect, it's even different than Pearl Harbor, which was not on the mainland. And so we need to take all the steps necessary to equip our government to deal with this. So the Patriot Act, and of course, FISA dates back earlier, but FISA powers were expanded after 9/11. Suddenly, the FBI and the other police agencies of government had all this surveillance power, new departments like Homeland Security. Now, what we didn't anticipate was something that people like Ron Paul and even Rand Paul warned us against, which is that you give the government all this power, they're going to turn around and use it against you, meaning against American citizens. So what a bitter irony that the very conservatives who supported this expansion of government power in the aftermath of 9/11 are now in the sights of a rogue regime. Now, when did this all start? I mean, the targeting, I think the political targeting began with Obama, my own case, going back to like 2013, an early indication. Yeah. But, Kim, I thought at that time that Obama was just a vindictive narcissist. He was mad that I made a movie. I didn't realize there was a systematic effort underway that's now expanded under Biden to target all political opposition, really to try to establish a one-party state.
It's really true. So a lot of our, viewers and listeners, they're quite astute. They follow news. They have a voracious appetite for truth and for just getting insight on what's going on here. You talked about this whole thing with it's essentially like a uniparty, the globalist movement, and what's going on. It's far more insidious, I think, than we even realized, back then. Like you said, we just thought, okay, Obama's a narcissist who's, going after people, political vindictiveness. But it's actually part of a much larger plan and scheme, essentially, on their part. What do you see? Like, how did that start? When do you think that actually started to have tentacles? Maybe it was way back when and we just didn't realize it at the time, that it was that, nefarious what was going on, that these people were to that level of bad actors. I mean, there was definitely a wake up with the last election. And you were one of the first people, by the way, to be on the receiving end of lawfare and political persecution, which they've now are, doing it against the president. But talk to us about that, about those forces and what's been going on, kind of behind the scenes, and how it's sort of just all moved together and coalesce into what we're seeing today.
Well, I had a very eye-opening moment in my own case when I was sitting across from the lawyers on the part of, it wasn't directly Eric Holder and the DOJ, but it was the Southern District of New York. People you're all too familiar with, the SDNY. And there was an Indian guy named Preet Bharara in charge of that at the time. And so his lawyers were basically saying, well, Dinesh, will you admit that you exceeded the campaign finance law? I was like, well, yeah, but I should get the same penalty, shouldn't I, as anyone else who did the same thing? And then I suddenly realized they're like, well, no way, don't get that idea into your head, because we're going to go after you for bank fraud and mail fraud.
Right.
And I was like, well, where's the bank fraud? So I realized that these are guys who didn't view me as a normal citizen or as an immigrant or even as a dissident, but I was a political enemy. And their goal was to like take me out. So I think that if you told those guys, listen, we've got a way to put Dinesh in prison for 20 years for giving away 20 grand of his own money, but let's say in an unlawful way to a candidate, they would have been like, go for it, let's do it. So,
yeah.
And then I realized that, you know what? I don't know anybody on our side who even thinks like this. If somebody went to somebody, a Republican, and said, look, we have a chance. We found a little glitch with Michael Moore. We can lock him up for 20 years and basically he won't get out until he's close to, keeling over. We would be like horrified. We'd be like, we're not going to do that. That's outrageous. Yeah. So ironically, I think, Kim, there's a difference of psychology between us and them, and what's provoking their aggression, their understanding and belief that we won't do the same thing. Because here's the way they think about it. We'll try to pack the court. Even if we fail, those guys are too righteous, they're too principled, they believe justices have got to be 9. So even if we fail, there's no penalty. Or we'll use the organs of the police against them. Why? Because even if they come back into power, they'll never do the same to us. So I think what you have is the left has basically got a cost-free environment in which to pursue all this kind of lawfare, and as a result, it's wearing down our side, and it's put American politics into a gangster phase that I never thought I would see.
It's really true. And I don't. What's the end game for these people? Ultimately, what is their core objective? What do they aspire to? That they say this is ultimately what we want to accomplish in this country.
Well, I think their end game is this. They recognize that America, the way it is, and American citizens, the way that they are now, are not going to be okay with the agenda that they have in mind. Mm-hmm. So the remaking of America that Obama talked about, going back to the Obama days, requires some pretty drastic measures. And what they're really doing here is they are, first of all, trying to remake the population of America. This is the point of the border policy.
Yes, I was just going to ask you. Go ahead.
Yeah, the point is to essentially create a new citizenry that can override, at least over the long term, and veto the citizens who are here. That's one part of the scheme. The second part of the scheme is to create a police state, ironically in the name of preventing a police state. So the funny thing is, if you talk to the left, it's not as if they go, oh no, Dinesh, you're wrong, there's no police state. They go, oh yeah, Dinesh, you couldn't be more right, there is a police state, and guess what? Your side is doing it. Trump is the symbol of authoritarianism. You guys want to deprive people of exercising basic rights. You guys want to control access to abortion. You guys want to go after the gays. So you're anti-freedom. You are the true authoritarians, and we have to take drastic measures to stop you. Now, ironically, here's Trump. He was in office for a term. What did he do to establish authoritarianism? The point I always make to the left is you keep claiming that Trump is the authoritarian. Well, whose side are the police agencies of government on? They're clearly not on Trump's side. They weren't even on Trump's side in the Trump administration. So I think that this is a case where the left has given up its classic beliefs in things like free speech, equal rights under the law. They are in a kind of combat mentality, and they are willing to throw aside the norms of American politics in order to create really a system in which I think they want to win every single time.
Yeah, it's really true. And I think you're so right, because I said this is so obvious to me. They're trying to flood this country with as many illegals as they can to create, like you said, this new citizen that will make sure that they get elected and run up the score every single time, so they control this country the way you think, what you believe in, control obviously the economics of the whole thing in terms of making people dependent on a government state. They're for big government, all of the above. It's just, it's really just, they want to awaken, socialism, in this country is what it really feels like on a daily basis. And they're pricing people out, whether it's food prices and gas prices and etc. I mean, I don't know, these people, it's like they seem to think that like Venezuela, is something to admire. And it's just sad when you see the videos, whether it's at the border, whether it's the number of, children that are missing, within the system that have come across the border, 87,000. To me, it's just, it's shocking to even looking at the streets, whether it's Chicago or New York City, and the number of people who are, quote, asylum seekers sleeping on the ground, waiting outside, like the Roosevelt Hotel in New York. I mean, it's just so shocking. It's like something straight out of like Will Smith, I Am Legends, like with zombies walking around, the fentanyl, the gangs coming in, the porous border, the child and sex trafficking. It just seems like it has amplified so much over the past 2 years.
Yeah, the people who are doing this, they don't believe in socialism in a certain kind of philosophical sense, because true socialism is everybody gets the same,
right.
Incomes are allocated equally. These people don't care about any of that. What they do care about is creating a system in which the state has concentrated power. This concentrated power then defers to them, because somebody has to run the state. Right. And they figured out that you don't even need, sometimes people, I think, mistakenly use the phrase the deep state, because the deep state conveys the idea that everything is like hidden. And so this is what lends people then to fall into conspiracy theories. They feel, for example, that everything is occurring like in a closed room behind people's sight and so on. But the truth of it is a lot of this police state is in the open. Think, for example, about the media. The media plays a part without engaging in a direct conspiracy. Take the Hunter Biden story. There are thousands of journalists, hundreds of media organizations. So here you have an interesting puzzle. How did they all come together and censor the same story? Why weren't there a few independent journalists who go, hey, listen, if those idiots don't want to cover it, I'll win a Pulitzer Prize, I'll cover it. But even those guys knew that their careers would be ruined if they did. And so even though you don't have a state-run media the way you did in the Soviet Union, or with Goebbels, who was the propaganda minister of Nazi Germany, he could literally tell people, you got to publish this. But in our country, the media, the digital platforms, academia, they work in collusion, even though they're not openly conspiring with one another.
Yeah, it's really true. It is much more out in the open than you would think. So it's a very important, I think, and a shrewd observation, because the term deep state is thrown around rather loosely. And I also like your point. You're right. It's not a pure socialism, but they do want all the power, but they don't give a crap if anybody else has, equal food, benefits, clothing, shelter, aspirations, and, opportunities in life. So, Dinesh, in all your movies, you lay out the left's attacks, on our most vital institutions, from the justice system to election offices to everywhere in between. What is it about the America First movement that has these corrupt, bad actors pressing the panic button?
Well, I think the America First movement is dangerous to them on two counts. The first one is the America First movement, unlike the mainstream of the Republican Party, is, I can call it woke in a different way. We are onto them, which means that the moment that they move, we know what they're doing. We know why they're doing it. We know that a lot of their stated rhetoric is BS. And we're distrustful of their institutions. So right away they know that it's almost like they're a group of bank robbers, and they know that we're watching the bank. So that makes them uneasy. The second thing I think that they find troubling about the America First movement is that they think that we have the spine and the guts to take them on. In other words, we are the guys who recognize that to some degree, the way to defeat them is we have to be a little bit like them. In other words, what we have to do is recognize, for example, that if they are using gangster tactics, the answer is not a strongly worded op-ed in like National Review online. The answer is to recognize that, listen, we have instruments of power as well. We have the House of Representatives. We have Republican district attorneys. We have the Supreme Court. So we need to use the power that we have to counter them, and we need to take action. So they know that we are not only onto them, but we have the spine to be able to do what is needed to defeat them. And that makes them extremely nervous, because the typical Republican usually is more than willing to meet them halfway, and that becomes a form of at least partial surrender.
Very well stated. Now, when you think back, on the earlier films, and I've been very fortunate to be there at a number of the premieres, and they're compelling beyond belief. I think my brother, by the way, is like your biggest fan, like even bigger than me. That's saying something. So if he doesn't hear it from you, he knows it's not true. So when you think back about the earlier films, how much influence does the legacy, and we touched on it briefly earlier, of Barack Obama have on this like extremist left agenda that we're seeing become, quite frankly, more and more radical and prevalent every day?
Well, I think Obama is maybe its chief instigator. He's not its chief theoretician in that,
Correct.
For example, when you look at a lot of the radical ideas, they go much further back. These absurd notions of intersectionality, which is the basic idea that, if you're black, you're a victim of racism, but if you're a black woman, of racism and sexism, but if you're a black handicapped woman, you're a triple victim of oppression, and therefore you have the top rung on the totem pole. I mean, this kind of madness, in fact, even goes beyond Obama's ability to conceive of it. So it takes some crackpot law professor to come up with it, other people to trumpet it. So what Obama was he was a very sly architect of all this, and his effectiveness was that he always rhetorically positioned himself toward the center. So it almost seemed like he was always acting like, well, I'm wrestling with the issue, and we got to make a distinction between ISIS and ISIL. So it's almost as if academic precision was his game, but in fact, radicalism was what he was pushing. Now, with the Biden people, it's almost like the police state has come out of the closet. It's out in the open. They're almost daring us to do something about it. And so I thought, you know what? I'm sort of like the animal in the herd that sees that the cheetah is not only approaching, but is jumping out of the trees. And so it's time to sound the alarm, and that's really what this movie does. So I'm really glad. I mean, I'm 7 movies into this, and I think I've gotten better along the way. And so this movie has a sort of cinematic and emotional power that I think goes even beyond my earlier movies. So I'm really excited about it. It's out next month. By the way, if I can mention the website.
Please, I was going to ask you all this, so you go.
Yeah, it's just policestatefilm.net.
Policestatefilm.net. Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
We're going to do a theatrical, and then, of course, followed by a virtual premiere, obviously digital download and streaming, DVDs, the whole shebang. But right now is a great time to get the theater tickets, because I know with 2,000 Mules, the tickets became really scarce. People are like, I want to see it in the theater. And
they got upset. I know.
So this is the time to go get your tickets, and it's policestatefilm.net.
Trust me, people were like fighting over the tickets and trying to get in. I got to ask you an important question about 2,000 Mules, actually, which I thought was a phenomenal film, and I'm really happy you took that whole thing over. You exposed the illegal ballot harvesting operations in states like Arizona, and you really brought it to life and to film in a way that people could understand. And we're like, whoa, this is not just some idea or conspiracy thing out there. This is the facts. This is the evidence. This is the proof. Like, it really made the case to convince people. So we know it happens. Is there a way to stop this? This is what I'm asked every single day. How do we stop this? Is there a way to stop it in 2024? And what is your response to those on the left who still say, well, there isn't evidence of, illegal voting? Given what you've personally seen with your own, eyes and uncovered.
Well, the point of 2,000 Mules was to use 2 independent lines of evidence. The beauty of 2 independent lines of evidence is that the one corroborates the other. And since the 2 are not connected, the probability that these lines of evidence are wrong becomes almost like it's 0. So let's take an example. If you have a serial killer who's going from one house to another and leaving dead bodies everywhere, and that guy's cell phone can be tracked to all those exact locations where all the dead bodies are found, that alone is really strong evidence. But let's say out of those 10 places, those 10 homes, 2 of them, or even 1 of them, has a video surveillance camera. And you can tell from the cell phone that he got there on Tuesday at 2 in the morning. So you go look on the camera, you look at the timer, you set it to 2 in the morning, and there you see him walk in the house. Well, you got 2 independent types of evidence, and the case is clinched. I mean, any jury would convict immediately based upon that evidence. And that is the exact evidence that we use in 2,000 Mules to track the mules. We use video surveillance where available. Now, some people go, well, we need more evidence. We need the same mule at multiple locations. Well, when you realize how few locations actually had working video cameras, you realize what a tall order that is. But I'm telling you that where there is video evidence, it completely supports the cell phone geotracking tracking. So that was the power of 2000 Mules. And look, I mean, what a movie can do is bust an operation like this and expose it. And then it's up to the RNC, and it's up to the state parties, and it's up to the Republican lawyers and the activists to sign up to be poll judges and poll watchers. So a lot of steps need to be taken as a follow-up to make sure this doesn't happen in the future. But often people come to me and say, well, Dinesh, what are you doing? And I go, well, I've done the most important thing I can do. I've shown you how the heist was done, and it's your job to stop it the next time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Real quick, let's touch on the state of the race in 2024. Obviously, we know that Donald Trump is polling, better than ever, despite 4 indictments, 750 plus years that he's facing. But we're up against all of these corrupt institutions that we've highlighted, during this show. What is the roadmap to MAGA victory in 2024?
Well, the roadmap, you can see where the left is going with all this. If they were not scared of Trump, they wouldn't be doing all of this. So they're going after Trump because they want to disable him from being on the ballot. They don't even want him on the ballot.
True.
And the reason they don't want him on the ballot is that they fear that he can win. And they also fear that because Biden is unpopular, his policies are terrible, that even the cheating may not be enough to save them. So that their point is cheating can deliver 2, maybe 3% of the vote.
Exactly.
If it's not a close election, even that becomes blown away. Even that becomes, and I think that support for Trump, as we saw it even in 2020 and 2016, it's understated in the polls, and the left actually knows this. So I think for these reasons, they're mounting this all-out campaign, and I think the reason for the multiple indictments, the 91 counts, they're kind of hoping that we got to get him on something. So if he gets away in Florida, we'll get him in D.C. because we've got a sympathetic judge. We've got, of course, the D.C. juries. So this is really what's going on. And I think we need to blow the whistle on what's happening, because I think the ordinary American suspects that something is up and suspects that something really bad is happening, but sometimes you don't know the full extent of it. So, like, for example, police state, my point is people know about digital censorship. They know, pro-lifers know that they use the FACE Act and go after them. Moms who go to school board meetings know that there's helicopters and FBI surveillance and that kind of stuff going on. Obviously, the January 6th people know what's going on. The movie pulls all of this together and kind of tells you the big story, the meta story, if you will, of which all of these are kind of a small parts of this bigger story.
Yeah, it's really true. You have such an inspirational life story. Despite the fact that you're the first to uncover all of this and point it out, and then Dinesh was right, and you have this unique ability to sort of forecast and foreshadow and be ahead of what's coming. It's hard, I think, sometimes when you're like that to know what's really going on. Like, you really know the truth and you see it happening before even other people are willing to accept it. But I'm just curious, how are you still hopeful? What do you say to people when they say, Dinesh, he's still hopeful or, optimistic about America?
Well, I mean, I have to say I'm not as either hopeful or optimistic as I was in my earlier career. I think that temperamentally I am forward-looking, I'm optimistic. I tend to look for, well, this is a way that we can stop that. Mm-hmm. But I am also willing to admit that after you reach a certain point, it is difficult to come back.
It is.
Elon Musk made the point in connection with free speech. He goes, once you lose it, it's really hard to get it back. And so I think we're in a stage where there's an emerging police state. Now, clearly, there isn't a full-scale police state because there are lots of Americans who would say, well, I'm not being censored. I'm not Trump. I didn't go in the Capitol on January 6th, so I follow the law. Nobody's going to come and bang on my door. But the point is when things expand beyond a certain point, then the only thing you can do, unfortunately, is run. I mean, you're in the position now of like a refugee in North Korea or even the Jews in Nazi Germany. You have to get the heck out because the situation has deteriorated to such a point. So I hope we don't get to such a point, and part of the reason for making a film is to try to make a warning before the herd is under full-scale attack.
You're absolutely right. This is the warning call, so therefore pay attention to it, folks. I know it's going to be exceptional. I love your enthusiasm for it, and you say that it has such a beautiful cinematic quality to it. So tell us again when the movie's being released, where viewers can go to check it out, because his filmmaking is must-see.
Well, the movie's called Police State. The subtitle, Are You Next? There's only one place to get tickets. Even though it's going to be in a lot of theaters, we have actually bought out these theaters. And so the only place to get tickets is to go to the website, which is policestatefilm.net. You can't go to Fandango or any of the movie places. You got to go to the website, policestatefilm.net, get theater tickets. It's kind of really cool to go with family or friends or even your Republican group or book club. This is the time. I make the movies for the theater, and so for me, it's always fun when people watch them in the theater. There are other ways you can watch them, but the theater is a unique experience, and very often with like-minded people.
Yeah, I like it. That's a good idea. Like, go with your book club, your family, your friends, get a whole group together, go to the website and get it, and then make it an inspirational trip to educate and fill your mind, and so that you're not part of the herd. Don't allow yourself to get trampled, right? I mean, that's what we got to do.
I mean, I'm teaming up with with Dan Bongino for this one, and it's interesting because Dan, of course, does a daily show and so on, and Dan watches the final movie and he goes, "Wow, Dinesh," he goes, I thought I was like well informed. I thought I was in the know. I thought I would know everything that's going on that's in this movie, and he goes, "No." But what we do in the film is we have a lot of insider accounts from people who have been behind the levers of the police state, and then a lot of first-hand accounts. And in some cases with original footage, in some cases we recreate the footage so you can see what happened to somebody. But it takes you there. I mean, that's the beauty of a movie, is I'm not just telling you about it, I'm showing you what the police state is. I think it's going to be a really a wake-up call for people.
Well, I'm excited, and that's a nice partnership, teaming up with Dan Bongino. I love him a lot. He's a great friend of ours, like you are, and I love your family and your daughter, and congratulations on everything. I know you're fighting for the future generations, as well. So, and for your family. So I know your heart is all in it.
I certainly appreciate it, and I hope that this makes the difference that it's meant to.
I think it will, indeed. All right, the great Dinesh D'Souza, thank you so much for being on the program.
My pleasure.
Dinesh, thank you, and we cannot wait to have you back on again soon, and congratulations on the film. So make sure you like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. It's all of you who make this show possible, and I also want to take a few questions from the live chat. All right, question 1. A lot of comments about having optimism and a better America. Kimberly, where do you see the country heading? Well, listen, I see the country moving in a great direction because I feel Americans are more inspired and motivated than ever to take their country back. As Dinesh says, don't be part of the herd. We need to be leading the challenge and making sure that we do not waste time to take the country back before we do not recognize it. This isn't just a rosy, glowy outcome in the future guaranteed. It starts with this 2024 election, mobilizing, getting the vote out. As he mentioned, they're worried that the cheating isn't enough to be able to overcome the enthusiasm for President Trump and the lack of enthusiasm for the abysmal failure of the Biden administration or for whoever else they put in from the left. So that's what I think is incredibly important. And under President Trump, we can restore that American greatness again, and energy independence and manufacturing and infrastructure, and resume our place as the head of, foreign affairs and national security that's strong in this country, and secure our borders, stop the poison from coming in, stop the child and sex and human trafficking that's been going on under this Biden administration. All right, we get another great question here. Let's see. Another viewer says, Donald Trump and his courage can save us. 1,000% agree with that. And that's why we need a courageous leader, someone like a Trump or exactly a Trump, because there is no substitute. You don't have Trump courage without Trump. That's why Reagan was so memorable and so important and iconic for what he was able to do and the position he put us on the world stage. Donald Trump has done it before, and he will do it again. Question 3, let's see. Kimberly, what can we do to get out all our friends to vote in 2024, even ones who didn't normally vote? I think people have to be scared enough to know that no matter what, rain, wind, or shine, they've got to show up. They've got to bring their friends and family out to get out there. I think we need an additional 15 million votes to run up the score. We've got to definitely mobilize and do ground game in the swing states and make sure that we're able to ballot harvest where it is in fact legal and viable, because they're doing it on the other side. So you can't expect to win if you're not playing the same game that they are. And I'm saying this in a legal way, and one valid, lawful vote for each person counted. And that's the bottom line. But I think people are tired of the nonsense in this country, the lack of security, the porous border, the drugs coming in, the horrific, abysmal economy, the lack of manufacturing and infrastructure. They want the energy independence, and with Trump, they can get it. All right, and my closing remarks are just ahead, and I want to thank another incredible sponsor for making this show possible. So don't forget about the great team over at MyPillow, because the best pillow, that's right folks, is getting even better. The MyPillow 2.0 is equipped with a brand new temperature regulating technology, and it will keep you comfortable throughout the night. And as Mike Lindell has been telling you, the patented interlocking fill allows you to adjust your MyPillow to your individual needs. So it's going to give you the exact support that you need, that you love, that you crave, from the bed to your head, and it's going to stay that way throughout the night. Beautifully consistent. And you can buy one, get one free. Love a good deal like that with promo code Kimberly at mypillow.com. Go get that pillow, okay? And put the promo code Kimberly in, and you'll get a free pillow. So you get 2 pillows for the bed, all right? Make friends that way. Along with big discounts on all your favorite MyPillow products. Want to give a shout out to the American Eagle towels. They are the best. I've got a whole cabana filled with them. So that's mypillow.com/Kimberly. Get your free pillow on. All right. And I also want to bring you a special message from Patriot Lifestyle, where you can save more and spend less on a whole host of different benefits, from non-insurance healthcare benefits to savings on travel, identity theft, legal services, and even pet care. Take a look. Kimberly Guilfoyle. And you can go to patriotbenefits.net to learn more. These programs all come at an extraordinary value and will greatly improve your life. In closing, our country is on a dark path towards a place many of us thought was unimaginable, where political opponents are indicted, where conservative Americans are targeted for their beliefs, and where actual crimes go unpunished. It's why films like Police State are so important. They lay out the facts, present the case, show you the evidence, and show you just what's at stake. It's part of the mission of this show to bring you the truth, unfiltered and uncensored. Because here on this program, we reject the false narrative and always seek the truth. So be sure to like and subscribe to my channel at Kimberly Guilfoyle and Donald Trump Jr.'s channel. Turn on notifications, download the Rumble app, and tell all your friends and family so they know exactly where to find us. And also be sure to follow me across all platforms, X, formerly known as Twitter, Truth Social, Facebook, and Instagram, and Don Jr. as well. And don't miss Don Jr.'s big show at 6 p.m. right here on Rumble tonight. I hope you have a great rest of the day.